All right. Anyway, let me do a really quick introduction of Suzanne C.S. Lakin, website Live Right Thrive, Live Right Thrive. Good grief. If you have not visited that website and seen all the great free material there, you need to do that. There's also some great courses. I will drop links to the courses a little bit later in this to make sure that everybody kind of gets in. And that nobody misses it in the chat. She's got a great course that's actually, it talks about microtension, what we're going to talk about today, but it also talks about a lot of other things in great detail to basically teach you how to write a novel that's actually going to sell, which would be kind of a nice, refreshing thing for writers to have. So anyway, without further ado, I'm going to introduce Suzanne C.S. Lakin. She's here to talk to us about microtension. Feel free to introduce yourself a little bit and then jump right on in.
Okay, great. Glad to see you guys. It's always fun to do Zoom sessions, and I don't care if there's 3 people or 3,000 people. I love to share what I've learned. Just a little brief background. I've been writing novels for over 30 years, and I've been involved in some manner of the writing, publishing milieu for just that long, just working with publishers. I've had 6 agents. I teach at workshops. I teach, at boot camps and online. But the main thing is I do more than 200 critiques a year, and I've been doing that for a lot of years. So I've gone through a lot of manuscripts. And when I first set out to be an editor, because I thought I was pretty good at catching, bad punctuation or whatever, after a couple years, I started getting really frustrated that I would be editing manuscripts, and I kept seeing a lot of these huge story structure and component issues that really just made the novel horrible. There could be some great writing and everything, and I just felt really guilty to be correcting people's spelling and punctuation all the while their novel was going to fail. So I shifted my emphasis in the work that I do in working with thousands of writers around the world is really focusing on critiques, because I guess you could say it's sort of like a developmental edit, but it doesn't involve editing. It's really all about looking at these components. And so one of those components that I look at is microtension. And we're going to talk about that today. I don't know whether Donald Moss, the literary agent who also writing your breakout novel, I don't know if he coined this phrase or made it up. Actually, I should just write him and ask him, did you make this up? But ever since I took his week-long breakout novel workshop in Oregon about 10 years ago, and we did a whole session on microtension, it just blew my mind. And you can write a really great novel that has a lot of tension in it, and it can be really good. But it's when you use microtension that starts moving your writing from being great or good to being very masterful. And so that's what we're going to kind of talk about today. My focus is always to push to the next level. Yeah, there are a lot of novels out there that sell big that are crappy. Let's just all agree to agree. There's a lot of crappy books out there that sell big, and we all want to tear our hair out and scream and pound the windshield and cry. I have done all of those things many times when my novels aren't selling really big. And I have a friend who wrote a really terrible novel, and it's 7 million copies. I'm like, why? So we all get frustrated at that. But I would like to encourage all of you to really think about just how to take your writing to the next level, how to make your writing better so that your readers will have a better reading experience. And I think it's really important that we separate the success over here, the monetary success or the publishing success over here, with what it means to write a really great book. And I would hope that all of you appreciate a great book, a really well-written book, a masterful writer. When you read their writing, it just really moves you and grips you. And the other distinction I just want to make really clearly is that when we're talking about microtension, we're not talking about plot tension at all. You need plot tension. You need an interesting plot. You need plot with twists. You need a premise that maybe has a really unusual twist or surprise to it. You need to pack your novel with tension. But we all know what that tension is, but microtension is really, really different. So it can take a little time to get what it is, but I look at it as the glue that kind of holds your whole story together in this masterful way. And it's all about your writing. It's all about your word choice. So I'm going to pull up, I'm going to share my screen, and you can just tell me, please, if you don't see things that I pull up on the screen. Sometimes I talk for 10 minutes and people are like, excuse me, we can't see anything. So I hope you see this, right? What microtension is and why it's important. Thumbs up, nod, something. Okay, good. All right. So this is just from a little bit of a blog post, but I want to go over a few of these points first so you kind of get a feel. And then we're going to look at a couple different passages, and I'm going to show you all the microtension in those passages, and that's going to help drive it home. So if you don't quite get what I'm saying at first, just hang in there. Stay with me. Okay, so we know that tension is created by lack, right? There's something missing, you know, your reader is not feeling satisfied because something has to take place or something hasn't been done yet. Some clues are missing, whatever. So masterful writers keep their readers in this constant state of tension. And that's kind of what I'm going for. It doesn't mean you have to make your readers like being like so stressed out that they just like have to go get a drink or something like that. Some books are like that, yes, but you might be writing a really sweet romance or a cozy mystery or something that's just fun and relaxing, a beach read, and it's not going to have that kind of tension. You can be writing like a comedy that is just fun and you just laugh the whole way through, and the tension is just in the enjoyment of the fun, surprising, comedic dialogue that's being delivered. And there's tension there too. So don't think of tension the way we always think of tension, as only like this negative, bad feeling that we have. We want that tension. Think of more of like a tension of a rope that's pulled taut. You want things really tight in your story, and you want that tension to hold. You don't want to have pages of boring, blah, ordinary, predictable stuff. You want to make sure that everything you have on the page is very deliberate. And when you take my course, my 8 weeks to writing a commercially successful novel, what you learn by going through like dozens of scenes is you start to see how every word is deliberate. You know, you'll read a sentence 3 times and after that, all of a sudden it clicks why that particular adjective was used, and how there's like a metaphor that's playing underneath the whole page that you didn't even realize. So sometimes writers are so brilliant that they actually plan this stuff out. Other times, I'm guessing that the writers that I love that write amazingly great prose, that a lot of it is just so second nature to them. They don't even realize they're doing these metaphors and these themes and stuff like that. So microtension plays into all of that. Okay, so just what is microtension? So I'm reading right here. Just as the prefix suggests, it's tension on a micro level, or small, barely noticeable increments. Your big plot twists and reversals and surprises are macro tension items, and that's great. But anytime a character has conflicting feelings, you have microtension. Anytime your reader is surprised by her own feelings, that creates microtension. When you say something or show something and all of a sudden a reader is feeling something they didn't expect to feel, that creates microtension in them. So microtension can be small, simmering, subtext, subtle. Even the choice of words or a turn of a phrase can produce microtension by its freshness or unexpected usage. It's created by the element of surprise. So just like I said, when readers are surprised by the action in a scene, the reaction of characters, or their own emotional reactions, that's successful microtension. A sudden change in emotion can create tension. A character struggling between 2 opposite emotions or a moral dilemma can create tension. That's again plot tension, but it can create microtension also. But microtension is created when things feel off, feel contradictory, or seem puzzling. And that may make you wonder, like, why do you want that? So I'll just explain that as we go along. Sure, at the end of your book, you want to have that happy moment, but until you get to the end of the book, you really want that tension to be strong. So I mentioned 3 areas that you can add microtension. And again, I'll provide you with these PDFs so that you can refer to them. So don't try to take a million notes off of what you're reading here. But if I say something brilliant, yeah, jot it down. That's good. So first thing, dialogue. Examine every line of dialogue. Take out the boring, unnecessary words, trivial matter. Take out the on-the-nose writing. If you don't know what on-the-nose writing is bad It's a bad thing. It's writing realistically, which is good. Like if you went to Starbucks and you sat there for 15 minutes and you recorded every single realistic thing that everybody said, their exact words, what they're wearing, where they're sitting, how old they look, describe their hair, you might have everything perfectly accurate and you will have put your reader to sleep, because who cares, right? So really what readers want is they want to be surprised. I have a great blog post on my blog from Jeff Gerke, who is a publisher, and he was an acquisitions editor for publishing house for many years. And he wrote this great article called Hacking Your Reader's Brain. Hacking Your Reader's Brain. I highly recommend you go to Live, Write, Thrive, type that in the search bar and read that post. He interviewed a neurosurgeon or a neuro something, like a brain specialist, right? And asked him about engagement, like what keeps people paying attention or being engaged to anything. And I think you'll find it very interesting what he says about it. But basically, you just need to continually have this element of surprise. That's microtension, whether it's a surprising word or whether it's a surprising thought that your character has that feels incongruous. I use that word a lot, incongruous, when I'm talking about microtension and teaching about it, because that's what's at the heart of it. So dialogue, you want to make sure you've got dialogue with subtext, that characters are not saying what they really feel, which is 99% of us, what real life, what we do. Action, every gesture is an action. Little gestures can create microtension. If you have a character saying one thing and their gesture or body language is kind of saying the opposite, that creates microtension because it makes the reader go, huh? I always like to describe microtension in 2 words, and that's wait, what? Those are my 2 words. Wait, what? If I'm reading something and all of a sudden I'm thinking in my head, wait, what? I got caught on a word or I got caught on an image or something. And I don't mean, wait, what? I didn't understand it because the writer's so bad at writing that I didn't understand it. I mean, I get caught in these little I guess like what C.S. Lewis said, it's like this net of surprisingness. I love it. You want to catch your readers in this net. So I have a blog post on that too, which is also very interesting to get into what C.S. Lewis was talking about. So you got dialogue, you got action, and then exposition, of course, is the writing. And really, to me, that's where 90% of your microtension is going to fall, is in the writing. The tension is in the plot action. The microtension's in the writing. Okay. So I want to read you this one little bit. Can you guys tell me, did I just switch to a new document? Did you see that? Okay. Sometimes when I do screen sharing and I open up a different document, especially if I close one, open another, all of a sudden you don't see it. So I stuck everything here in the PDFs so that I could do this. Okay. So this is just a little piece of a scene from my book, Intended for Harm, which is a literary novel, biblical allegory kind of story. And I actually submitted this scene to Donald Moss at the workshop. He asked us to give samples that he could read and talk about. And when he read, it was a moment, I have to tell you, because when he read just a couple lines, he stopped and his eyes went big and he just stared at me and he said, "Do you realize how terrific this is?" And I'm like, "Oh, thank you." It was really great. But he used this as like the premier example, or a perfect example of what he is explaining about microtension. So let me set the stage really quick. Joey is about 12. I'm sorry. Simon is about 12. Joey's about 5. Simon hates his younger brother, so he's lured him up onto the roof and he's going to throw him off and kill him. So there's lots of plot tension in this scene, obviously, because we're all excited and worried about whether he's going to kill his little brother, right? And this is all obviously in the middle of the novel, and we've been watching these kids growing up and all that kind of stuff. So we've got Joey up on the roof, and he's like, "Okay, what am I supposed to see?" Joey asked, his voice now strangely calm. Simon looked in Joey's eyes, his brother now so naive and trusting and gullible, who doesn't see it coming. The sparkle in Joey's eyes, with the sun practically smiling down upon him, strengthened Simon's nerve. Well, that cute little face is about to get ugly. Serves him right, serves them all right. Simon is a very angry young man, and he really hates his younger brother. He let the hurt and anger pump his resolve until it felt about to burst through his chest. Without allowing another second to stand between Simon and his purpose, he grabbed Joey by the shoulders, gripped his shirt tightly in both hands, swiveled him around, and flung him off the roof. The world screaming at him, but Joey silent, not making a sound, a cry of surprise, almost as if he knew it was coming and had nothing to say about it. Simon froze at the edge of the roof, shaking so hard he stumbled back, sought purchase for his feet, fell back onto the shingles as a smack sailed up to him from below, and he raked his trembling fingers through his hair, the impact of the moment catching up to him in real time, the reality of his action overlying the many times he practiced it in his head, his mind reeling, dizzy, feelings of exuberance clashing with the terror of what he had done, staring at his hands and replaying their graceful movement, their strength, feeling an overwhelming sense of relief coupled with dread. He heard a noise from below. Simon's heartbeat ratcheted to double time. He never considered that Joey could survive such a fall. He hadn't prepared for that outcome, for injury over death. Joey couldn't have survived. He'd fallen 15, 20 feet, fallen hard. Simon had heard the loud thud of Joey's body as it hit the ground. Simon crawled to the ledge, unable to get his uncooperative legs to work, knowing if he tried to stand, he might join his brother in a heap on the patio. He edged over and looked down, grabbed the top of the metal rain gutter, nearly fell anyway. He blinked and shook his head. Joey was standing, brushing himself off, pushing hair from his eyes. Then he tipped his head back, locked eyes with Simon. No way. Simon knew he was just not seeing this. There was no way his brother could be alive. Or maybe he could have had broken a dozen bones, been unconscious, but not this. Standing for all the world like nothing had happened and looking at Simon in such a calm manner. It made no freaking sense. So now Joey chews him out. You shouldn't have done that. That was bad. And they have this conversation, right? So, and then he's imagining what Joey's mother's going to think when she sees him and he tells on him and all this. So, so they have this conversation and Simon is frustrated. Simon abruptly strode over to the ladder, hurried down the rungs, pulled the ladder away from the roof where it fell in a loud clatter. He fiddled with the latches, his hands shaking so bad he kicks it out, and then there is his stepmother coming back. I was just trying to remember if there was one other part here. Yeah. All right. So I hope you could see this. Of course, this is a stream of consciousness type of writing. It's, different from a lot of other kind of styles you might see in commercial fiction. But I hope you can see that you've got the tension and the plot action here, but you also have this microtension happening because of what's going on in Simon's head. Okay, so he has some things pictured in his head. He's feeling certain things. His feelings are in opposition with each other. He wants to kill his brother. He's terrified. He's elated. And then he does throw his brother off the roof. And there's this juxtaposition of really incongruous kinds of words. And the main paragraph here is this one right here, where he hears the smack and he thinks about how he had practiced this in his head. He has this feeling of exuberance clashing with this terror. And then I use this word graceful, this graceful movement, because the idea of throwing somebody off the roof in a graceful manner just feels so wrong to what he's doing. And yet to Simon, that's what it felt like. It felt like this beautiful ballet of like just tossing his brother off the roof so perfectly. And yet along that came with it was this, relief and dread. So you see how the microtension is created because of these crashing emotions and thoughts that the character is having. So being in deep point of view as you write is what's going to help facilitate this. If you're just writing kind of a distance point of view and superficially, and you're not really getting into your character's head, it's really hard to create that microtension. You can create plot tension, yeah, by showing crazy weird things that are happening or somebody sneaking behind a building, but you're not going to get the microtension so much unless you're in that deep point of view. So does anybody have any questions, or is there any comment or anything you're confused about or noticed? You can unmute yourself maybe if Troy's allowed you to unmute. And feel free to just share any thoughts you have about that. I realize the microtension thing, I'm just trying to get your feet wet here so you can kind of see what I'm talking about with these choice of words. A lot of the choice of words too can be the way they sound, you know, the syllabate type of thing where you're using lots of the same letter, lots of S. If you're like here, he grabbed Joey by the shoulders. He gripped his shirt. I've got shoulders and shirt and grabbed and gripped. These are very deliberate choices. I wanted a hard sound. I wanted words that were abrupt and short and hard, because he's grabbing Joey, he's tossing him off the roof. I'm not going to use beautiful, flowery language when I'm doing this type of an action, right? And the world is screaming at him. Well, what's the world? There's nobody out there screaming at him. It's all in his head. But the world is screaming. But what is the contrast? The contrast is Joey isn't even crying. He doesn't even yell, ah, or anything. He just quietly flies off the roof, right? Like he knew he wasn't going to get hurt. So I have a lot of not paranormal, I should say, magical realism in this book. Joey has like special powers. He's, you know, he's Jacob's love child, the story of Jacob and Rachel Leah. That's what this whole book is about. So yeah, any questions? And I'm going to go into this next example.
This is Candy. I just wanted to say I found the tension in the paragraph, for example, that you just read, but I really found it almost a delightful read that Joey didn't get killed and the surprise like that. So I'm just curious, is it ever explained how he survived? I mean, how he didn't get killed?
Well, throughout the book, ever since he's born, he just seems to be gifted or blessed or protected. You know, he's, you know, it has that whole element of faith in there, religion. He's a very religious little boy, and he believes God has a special purpose for him in his life. There's a lot of miraculous things that happen. His dad cuts his own leg open with a chainsaw and he's bleeding to death, and Joey's there, and Joey's only like 3 years old, and he touches his father's leg and heals it up. And when that's another great scene with lots of microtension. When the paramedics come and see the blood everywhere, it's like, well, where's it coming from? You know, and so that's a freak out that, you know, his father freaks out a lot because Joey does this kind of stuff a lot. Anyway, so yeah, read the book.
I found that really, it's gripping. And the other thing is I have a small spot in mine similar, and I didn't explain it, but that's what I guess I was asking is, so you've sort of explained it when you said, well, he has these powers or this faith. So that's what can be called why it happened.
Oh yeah, I never explain anything. I mean,
okay, perfect.
Parents talk about it. They go, wow, you know, how does he have these powers? You know, like, so like, but you know, Joey doesn't really know, especially as a kid. So yeah, staying in point of view, you can't explain anything to the reader unless the character thinks about it.
Okay.
So that's again, you have to be really aware of deep point of view. I have one of my 8 elements in my course is all about deep point of view and what that's really about. You hear about it a lot, but a lot of people don't really get what that really means. So yeah, there's a lot there. Anybody else have a question or anything? Thanks, Candy.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, I'm going to show you part of the opening scene of Gone Girl. You guys have probably seen the movie. Hopefully you've read the book. The book is really weird. I would never recommend structuring your book the way that Gillian Flynn structured her book, but it's just so creepy, and the characters are so awful that you hate them. I don't even know how she did it. I mean, normally if you hate all your characters, if you hate all the characters in a book, you're going to stop reading. But she's so delightfully evil and weird that you just have to keep reading. But there's some great writing in Gone Girl too. So anyway, the scene here is the opening scene, but it's not the actual opening lines. The beginning of this scene is kind of interesting, and it's important to mention because she starts off talking about how the sun is in the sky. It's like an angry eye. And you're going to see when we get to the end of the scene that she ends with that. And it's really wonderful when you can do book ending like that within scenes or within a book. A lot of times you'll see a first scene and the last scene will do some book ending, repetitive themes or lines. I do that a lot in my novels. But you can also do it within scenes, which is really cool. I usually like to try to pull like a line from about a third of the way down in the scene and then end with it as a repeated thing. So she does this where she starts off by having him wake up and he sees the angry eye in the sky. So pay attention to what happens to you when I'm reading this, in terms of if you get to these words or phrases or sentences and you say, wait, what? Something doesn't feel right. Okay. So it was our 5-year anniversary. What do you expect? You expect this guy to be happy, madly in love with his wife, right? So I'm going to just read through this, and then I'm going to point out all these bits of microtension. In fact, if you can think of them, you can share them and tell me what you noticed. I walked barefoot to the edge of the steps and stood listening, working my toes into the plush wall-to-wall carpet Amy detested on principle, as I tried to decide whether I was ready to join my wife. Amy was in the kitchen, oblivious to my hesitation. She was humming something melancholy and familiar. I strained to make it out. A folk song, a lullaby, and then realized it was the theme to MASH. Suicide is painless. I went downstairs. Was all the prompting he needed, I guess. I hovered in the doorway watching my wife. Her yellow butter hair was pulled up, the hank of ponytails swinging, cheerful as a jump rope, and she was sucking distractedly on a burnt fingertip, humming around it. She hummed to herself because she was an unrivaled botcher of lyrics. When we were first dating, a Genesis song came on the radio. She seems to have an invisible touch. Yeah, I like that song. And Amy crooned instead, she takes my hat and puts it on the top shelf. When I asked her why she'd ever think her lyrics were remotely, possibly, vaguely right, she told me she always thought the woman in the song truly loved the man because she put his hat on the top shelf. I knew I liked her then. I really liked her, this girl with an explanation for everything. There's something disturbing about recalling a warm memory and feeling utterly cold. Amy peered at the crepe sizzling in the pan and licked something off her wrist. She looked triumphant, wifely. If I took her in my arms, she would smell like berries and powdered sugar. When she spied me lurking there in grubby boxers, my hair in full heat miser spike, she leaned against the counter kitchen and said, well, hello, handsome. Bile and dread inched up my throat. I thought to myself, okay, go. I was very late getting to work. My sister and I had done a foolish thing when we both moved back home. We had done what we had always talked about doing. We opened a bar. We borrowed money from Amy to do this, $80,000, which was once nothing to Amy, but by then was almost everything. I swore I would pay her back with interest. I would not be a man who borrowed from his wife. I could feel my dad twisting his lips at the very idea. Well, there are all kinds of men, his most damning phrase, the second half left unsaid, and you are the wrong kind. But truly, it was a practical decision, a smart business move. Amy and I both needed new careers. This would be mine. She would pick one someday, or not. But in the meantime, here was an income made possible by the last of Amy's trust fund. Like the McMansion I rented, the bar featured symbolically in my childhood memories, a place where only grownups go and do whatever grownups do. Maybe that's why I was so insistent on buying it after being stripped of my livelihood. It's a reminder that after all, I am after all an adult, a grown man, a useful human being, even though I lost the career that made me all these things. And then there's a whole section that comes in the scene about the bar and then what happens when he gets there and gets out and all that kind of stuff. So like that. So now this is the end of the scene. As I walked toward the bar across the concrete and weed parking lot, I looked straight down the road and saw the river. The river wasn't swollen now, but it was running urgently in strong ropey currents. Moving apace with the river was a long single file line of men, eyes aimed at their feet, shoulders tense, walking steadfastly nowhere. As I watched them, one suddenly looked up at me, his face in shadow, an oval blackness. I turned away. I felt an immediate, intense need to get inside. By the time I'd gone 20 feet, my neck bubbled with sweat. The sun was still an angry eye in the sky. You have been seen. My gut twisted and I moved quicker. I needed a drink. So I hope you noticed like about 5,000 bits of microtension in there. Does anybody want to share like what? Let's just go to the first page with him looking down at listening to his wife in the kitchen. Anybody have any thoughts about what made a good microtension here?
I love how it starts with the song. Like that song itself, if you listen to the song, has microtension in it.
Oh yeah.
Like in the lyrics, in the music
Yeah.
of that song. There's notes that are incongruous.
Yeah,
so if you mentally start to go through that song in your head, you already feel it. But I love how that starts. That's the very first thing.
Oh, there's more before that though. Where else do we get microtension way before that MASH?
Well,
Anybody?
now there's a quiz.
Yeah. All right. Be brave.
She
Speak up.
didn't like the
people.
carpet.
The walk. Yeah. Amy
She
just has like,
detested.
why would you think about how Amy hated the carpet right now? Like that just adds like this weird, like that's the thing that he would think of on his anniversary, right? Okay, good. What else?
I think even the first line itself qualifies as microtension because it's a factual statement. There's, nothing nice about that. It's just, it was the year anniversary, period. So
Yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't say that is any microtension because it could have gone on to then talk about how wonderful their anniversary was. I think it's just basically a statement of fact, but it does frame what's about to take place, right? And it also creates the item to juxtapose the incongruous feelings and words, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Also, as I tried to decide whether I was ready to join my wife, like who would think that on their anniversary? What does he have to get ready about? Like what? And his wife doesn't know that he's hesitating. So there's some like lack of, it feels like secrets all the way through. Okay. So what about this next paragraph about the beautiful image of the yellow butter hair and the hanky swinging ponytail, cheerful, all these like positive types of adjectives here, right? And verbs. Anybody want to pick something out here?
And that seems like a good memory, talking about when he first met her.
Yeah.
And that she,
Yeah. Okay, go on.
just that she couldn't get the lyrics right, but nothing in there seems negative.
Okay, so yeah, we're not looking so much for negative, but just anything that makes you kind of pause. Like I hovered in the doorway. Okay, hovered is kind of weird, but you've got this really, everything is just, the sentence is packed full of stuff. Yellow, butter, hair, hank of a ponytail, swinging, cheerful as a jump rope. So you've got this like really like almost child innocent girl image, and his wife is anything but some innocent, cute little naive girl, right? So, and then she's sucking distractedly on a burnt fingertip. I'm sorry, but that's really out of point of view, and I'm going to nail it right here because he has no idea that she burned her finger, but he could guess maybe a burnt fingertip, but just watch that kind of point of view assumptions going on here. And she's humming around her fingertip. Okay, so obviously this paragraph is a setup to deliver the microtension. Why? Because it's the next paragraph that hammers home the microtension. There's something disturbing about recalling a warm memory and feeling utterly cold. So I hope you saw that. That's pretty obvious microtension. That makes you go, wait, what? It's his anniversary. He sees his beautiful wife that he loves and thinks about this warm memory of this cute date and how he really fell in love with her. And then he's feeling cold. So now we know, okay, there's trouble in paradise. There's something not right in this marriage. We really know it now. Okay. So, I mean, but all these little words in here subconsciously add microtension. She peered at the crepe sizzling in the pan. I'm always looking for metaphors. Their marriage is kind of like sizzling in the pan. And if you don't pay attention to it, it's going to burn. Have you ever burned butter in a pan and set off the smoke alarm? And all of a sudden that lovely butter, where's the butter? Yellow butter hair. Okay, so she's got butter probably sizzling in the pan with the crepes, right? And then she licks something off her wrist. So some butter splashed. And I don't know, that's just kind of like a weird visual. I'm not really sure where she's going with that. But again, it's sort of like an innocence. She's not really paying attention. She got some butter on her, whatever. And he says, if I took her in my arms, she would smell like berries and powdered sugar. That's so wonderful and sweet. But then when she spied me lurking, yeah. So look at all this choice of words: spied me, lurking, grubby boxers, his hair a mess. And then she's like, well, hello, handsome. And I can bet you that she intended for us to feel that line is a kind of creepy line. I mean, she's already built up enough microtension so that when she says, well, hello, handsome, we don't even believe it, that she really means that. And he doesn't either. Bile and dread inched up my throat. I don't believe for a minute that she's looking at him all innocently and thinking, oh, you are so handsome. I just so love you so much. He's thinking to himself, okay, go. There's obviously some build up to this that we have not been privy to, right? We have not been told, but there's obviously some tension in this relationship. So then he's thinking about work. I got to get to work. So he's tuning her out. And then you get the little bit of backstory and the setup, and that's okay, whatever. But what I wanted to focus on here was this last part, because this is brilliant and weird and creepy. So did you think this was just really weird? What do you think is weird about this paragraph and what happens in this action? Why would this author write this action, and why would this character notice these men? Talk to me, somebody.
I could cheat because I've already heard some of this.
No, don't cheat. Let
before.
somebody else answer, Troy.
But I'll let somebody else go because this is actually really cool.
Okay, I haven't read it yet. I think that this must be a metaphor for himself, and that's why he's noticing these people. But it is very odd. I have no idea why there's a line of people next to the river.
Yeah, and go with that. What are you saying about the metaphor? So what words stand out to you that act as a metaphor for his state of mind?
Well, definitely, it seems like single line file, steadfast to nowhere. Maybe it's a chain gang. So it does seem like there's kind of like this hunched walking, which is perhaps how he feels. The face in shadow and oval blackness looking up, though, is like, lost your face kind of a thing. So like he's lost his identity, perhaps.
Yeah. Okay. Anybody else? What are some words that stand out to you, like some adjectives? You got to learn to love adjectives, man, if you want to write great. Okay, let me show you what I got here. I marked up some of these things in yellow. It's the same thing. Okay, so if you choose adjectives that help reflect your character's mindset, that's what you want. That's brilliant. And then you also want to use as much metaphor and imagery as you can that helps mirror back what your character's feeling and thinking. So first we don't get a beautiful setting. We get a concrete and weed parking lot, which is the parking lot to his dream business. But what has happened to his dream? It's broken up into pieces of concrete and it's got weeds in it. Okay, so that's the subconscious kind of imagery we're getting. We're not getting a beautiful, thriving business. Maybe his business is thriving, but what does he notice? He's noticing the weeds and the concrete, the hard, ugly stuff. Okay, he's looking straight down the road and he sees the river. And honestly, I don't think there's been a chain gang in existence for 1,000 years, no, 100 years, right? So this whole thing about men walking single file is just the weirdest image in the world. It's like, it can't even be real. I mean, I think it is real. She's making it real, but like, why in the world would there be men, a single file of men? They're not chained up, but he would have noticed that. I mean, it's just weird. So she picks this image that maybe was like a subconscious image that she came up with. I'm talking about the author. And what does he see around him? Okay, now he sees the river. It's not swollen now. Maybe when he was in the house talking to his wife, he felt this river was swollen and drowning him, but it's running urgently in these strong ropey currents. So what happens? Have you ever fallen in a river? I know I've been in lots of rivers, and I've been river rafting, and I've been swept down rivers, and I've been almost drowned in rivers. I've done class 5 rapids. So I know what it feels like to be in a strong ropey current. Does anybody else have an idea? It's like you are pulled completely out of your control. You could be tossed upside down. Your head can go down to the bottom. You have no control. So what is he feeling now? He's feeling like his life is now being swept into the strong ropey current. And then next to the river are these guys, and they're walking steadfastly nowhere. Okay, so this is his life. His eyes are aimed at his feet. He has no clarity. He can't see anything around him. He's just trying to take one step in front of the other because his marriage is falling apart. His life is falling apart. We learn later he's having an affair. He thinks Amy's figured it out. He's in deep dog trouble, right? So this is what he's feeling. His shoulders are tense. And then when one person looks at him, this is very picturesque. This is not realistic. It feels like it's like a painting or something. And that's the feeling that she's giving here, because all of a sudden the one person turns and his face is in shadow, but somehow he knows the guy's looking at him, even though he can't see his face. But he has this is this is more Freudian, I think, right? It's subconscious. Like, you know how it is, you walk into a room and you feel like eyes boring into your back, like somebody's staring at you, looking at you. I'm guessing that these people don't even exist, but this is what he's feeling. So he turns away. He doesn't want to face this blackness that he's drowning in, that's being pulled in the current. Obviously, I felt a need to get inside. By the time I'd gone 20 feet, my neck bubbled with sweat. So now we're getting physical tells, body language that's telling us that he's really panicking, and that the sun is still an angry eye in the sky. But now we get, you have been seen. Well, obviously he's not talking about some guy in a line, a stranger, you know, the guy saw him. Yeah, but what does he care? Do you think he's going to care that some dude walking along the river saw him? No, obviously he's talking about something else. But this guy looks at him, and then the angry eye is looking at him. All of a sudden he feels like everybody is looking at him and sees what an unfaithful cheater husband he is, and he's about to be exposed. My gut twisted. I moved quicker. I need a drink. Okay, so and then I mentioned also down here at the bottom and at the end here about the microtension is also compounded by his guilt at borrowing Amy's money and the feelings of worthlessness from his father, which is a source of anger. So we get a little bit of piece of like, well, where is he coming from? And this is really great to, you know, make sure you put in your novel little tiny bits of backstory and thoughts that are triggered by the actions, so that you can help reveal what kind of person he is. The fact that he when he talks about his dad, just in this one little quick, you know, he's feeling like a loser. He's got this bar, he's having an affair, he feels like his marriage is falling apart, life is just not working out. He borrowed money from his wife, she's not happy about it. He has all the pressure to pay it back. And then he's got his dad on his shoulder telling him what a loser he is. You know, he's married this rich girl, and he's wanted to try to like earn her love, you know, earn an equality with her, and it's just not working. So I hope that this is a great example of microtension. Now, of course, this is a thriller, and it's a suspense novel, so you're going to expect a lot of this kind of tension in it. But I have read lots and lots of mysteries and thrillers and suspense that just falls flat, that's boring, that just has no microtension at all in it. So it really doesn't matter what your genre is. You really have to think about who your characters are, so that you will be able to look at what they need, look at who they are, look at what they're struggling with, what their inner conflict is, and then what's going on in the action, and then how to bring in those moral dilemmas and those contradictions and those beautiful words and phrases that will help your reader feel that tension in the writing as well as in the plot. Any other thoughts, last thoughts on this? Because we're wrapping up here. So just on this particular scene, do you have any other questions or anything that stood out to you? Okay. All right. So I hope that gives you a taste of microtension. I've taught my 8-week class numerous times over the last year. I taught it 3 times, and also with 2 4-month master classes. So maybe about 200 writers I worked with last year live in Zoom, and we've talked about microtension, and we've talked about all the other elements. And at the end of the course, I take a survey and I ask people, okay, what did you struggle with? What was the hardest element for you to really grasp? It's always microtension. So, you know, be nice to yourself. Don't expect yourself to be like, you know, amazingly brilliant. As you go now, you're going to go rush and sit down and pull that scene out that you've been working on that's really boring and flat and there's nothing happening there. Now you're going to go in and like try to ramp up that microtension. So it's going to be hard, but the more you can spot it as you're reading novels. And again, if you take my course, you will, you'll get a lot of scene samples, and you'll see like where the microtension is, and you'll start getting the hang of it. And it's just really important. I just can't underemphasize or overemphasize enough, I should say, how important it is that you really learn how to use microtension in your writing. And I see my friend and client Phyllis is here. Glad you're joining us, Phyllis. So yeah, any questions? I know Troy's probably going to say, okay, now this is question and answer period, but I'll just spare you the need
Yeah.
to do that.
The only thing I'm going to say is I'm going to stop recording. So if you want to unmute.